This simple slider is about to completely transform your entire company's branding. No, it's about to completely transform your entire life. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but it's really good. So if we take a look at your current branding, or you're a creative and a company you're working for, look at theirs, it's probably fine. It's probably nice and clean and professional, but doesn't really do anything that interesting to allow it to stand out. When you put your company's marketing next to one of your competitors, they all just kind of blend together in a sort of yawn-inducing gray-colored mush that doesn't really excite anyone. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact framework I use to figure out where your brand sits, where it sits alongside your competitors, and more importantly, what you can do using these sliders to help you really start standing out. Let's go. Now look at these 4 brands. Do you see anything distinctive between them to tell them apart? I'm guessing that's a no. They all use similar colors, the same sort of sans serif fonts, the same stock images of shiny locks and shields. And this is what happens when everyone follows the same best practices. It's because the term best practice doesn't really have a place inside creative marketing. Best practices are simply just a record of things that have worked before for other people in other contexts at different times. And when everyone starts following them, they tend to stop working. This is Byron Sharp. He's a professor of marketing science at an institute I can't pronounce the name of, but he spent decades researching what makes brands successful. And his research shows that distinctive brand assets, that's the visual and sensory cues that make your brand instantly recognizable, are one of the most important factors in brand growth. So there, it's been studied. So you have to trust me now. Most brands, and I do mean most, don't have distinctive assets. They have generic ones. They've focused themselves too much on making sure everything looks professional, which is a word I detest. And as a result, everything they've created is now just invisible. And invisibility equals death in this context anyway. So let's look at how to fix this. This is the branding slider, a handy little technique that I use with every client of mine to help them see where their brand sits and, more importantly, where they can improve it. Okay, so here's how it works. The slider sits between 2 positions. On the left, conventional, which are things that are safe, familiar, expected. And then on the right, we've got disruptive. This is when things get really unexpected, really different, really bold. There are 6 sliders in total that I'm about to take you through, and each one relates to a different aspect of your branding. Let's start with number 1, why it matters. Now this relates to the product or service that you're selling, right? Is it the same as everyone else's, or is it genuinely different? This is generally the part where people try desperately to pull a USP out of their backsides. But most people don't have a USP. They're not selling anything radically different from what's gone before them or what other people are doing. But it's good here to come to terms with that fact that if you're not doing anything vastly unique from anybody else, you can be conventional and be absolutely fine with it, because most people are. But you have to be self-aware enough to admit that to yourself so you can then move on. Next is how it thinks, your philosophy and your approach. Do you follow the industry norms or do you challenge them? Next up is how it speaks, and this is your tone of voice. Are you formal and corporate, or are you casual and talk to people like an actual human being? Now on to how it looks, your visual identity. Are you going to do something that blends in with the category, or are you going to do something vastly different? Now we're on to where it shows up, and these are the channels you appear in and where you become present. Do you go where everyone else goes, or do you find new places to play? And finally, how it behaves. Your actions, your customer service. Do you follow a proven playbook, or do you rewrite it? Now here's how all of that looks together. The important part here is you can't move all sliders to the right. If you try to be too disruptive in every single category, you're likely to confuse people. You'll be too weird, too risky, too hard to understand. Unless, of course, that's exactly what your industry needs and your customers are craving it, but that is quite rare. On the other hand, if you keep all 6 sliders on the left, conventional in every way, you will be invisible, predictable, and completely irrelevant. The sweet spot is normally around 3 to 4 disruptive categories, but you pick the categories where differentiation matters the most and you go all in. Everything else, you keep conventional so people can still understand what you do. These sliders aren't designed to sit in the middle. They either go far left or far right, just like all of your favorite relatives. I'm going to show you how this works in practice, and we'll use an example pretty much everyone's familiar with. That's right, Dollar Shave Club. So in 2011, a gentleman by the name of Michael Dubin launched this company. And what did they do? They sold razors. At that time, the market was dominated by Gillette. Gillette being a multi-billion-dollar company with decades of brand equity and celebrity endorsements and tons of shelf space in retailers. So someone that is very hard to compete with, especially given the fact that Dollar Shave Club are just starting out and they don't exactly have a lot of cash. Dubin's strategy was this: if you can't outspend them, outsmart them. He couldn't do much with the product, right? Razors are razors, but he could then have a play with everything else. So let's look at how we would frame what Dollar Shave Club did through these 6 sliders. Now let's look at why it matters, the product, right? Now, Dollar Shave Club razors were good, but they weren't revolutionary. They were similar quality to Gillette, just used a different delivery system. So we're going to put this over in conventional because there's nothing earth-shatteringly different about why this product exists, what it does versus what already came before it. Now that we've admitted to ourselves that we're sitting in the conventional category here, we know we can have a little play with all the others. You might have heard Rory Sutherland talk about intrinsic value versus perceptual value. Intrinsic value is what's created in the factory, so it's what the product is made of, and perceptual value is what's created in the customer's mind. Dollar Shave Club couldn't compete in the intrinsic value on what was being produced in the factory, but they could compete in the perceptual value, the value that was built around everything else that the brand stood for. Right, let's look at how it thinks. Now this is a slider we can slide all the way over to disruptive. Dollar Shave Club philosophy was to challenge the industry conventions. They recognized that their consumers were fed up with complicated pricing, overpricing, marketing gimmicks, and having to travel to the shop every month or so to go and get extra razors. So they simplified everything with transparent pricing and having the whole thing just delivered to your door. Let's move on to how it speaks. Now this one, we're moving that right over as well. This is where they went all in. In their first ever viral video, where we first heard the now infamous line,
"Our blades are great."
It was humorous, irreverent, and very different to any other buttoned up stuff that any of the competitors were doing at the time. Their slogan was shave time, shave money, and then all their social media marketing was all followed the same witty rulebook. So this one, definitely in the disruptive camp. Now we go to how it looks. This one, we're going to move over to conventional. They didn't need to do anything crazy with how it looked. They actually wanted it to sit comfortably in the world it was in. First logo, a couple of razors in a cross. Colors were like blues and whites. Nothing mental. They decided to keep that one firmly in the world it belonged in and push it in other areas. And as someone who does visual identity for a living, as fun as it can be to work on a visual identity that is vastly different than everybody else, sometimes it's not appropriate. And by doing these sliders, you can sometimes figure out that the one thing that you do have to keep conventional can be the looks. So it's not crazy to someone coming across it the first time. It's not too confusing to them what this thing is. Now we look at where it shows up. This one over to the right. Dollar Shave Club didn't try and compete with Gillette in retail stores. They decided to go direct to consumers. They were also very early on the viral video front. They were doing blogs. I think they even had a podcast at some point. They were in on internet media early days. So they decided to show up in very different places than the competition. That one is disruptive. Now onto how it behaves. This one is definitely a disruptor because they went for a behavioral disruption in this category. Instead of making customers go to shops, look at all of the choices, all of the different prices, they made it effortless. One sign up, gets delivered to your door every month, sorted. And that's how everything looks on the 6 sliders. 2 over in conventional. That's why it matters. And that's the product itself and how it looks. They both remained pretty conventional. Everything else was moved right over to disruptive. How it thinks, how it speaks, where it shows up, and how it behaves. And as a result of this, they were acquired by Unilever. They forced Gillette to drop prices to compete. They were expanded into Target and Walmart. And they did it all by being different in the categories that mattered. They couldn't change the product, so they changed everything else around it. So why does this work? Well, it works because consumers don't have time to sit and carefully evaluate every option in front of them. Byron Sharp, the guy I mentioned earlier on, his research shows that consumers rely on mental availability, the ease in which a brand comes to mind in a buying situation. So in other words, who's top of mind? If your brand looks, sounds, and behaves like everyone else's, you've created zero mental availability for the consumer and you're effectively invisible. But if you're distinctive in 3 or 4 key categories, you can create memory structures that make you easy to notice and easy to remember in people's tiny wee brains. Dollar Shave Club's razors weren't objectively better than Gillette's, but their brand was more memorable, their tone was more memorable, and their subscription model was more memorable. And memorability tends to win. Distinctiveness doesn't mean you're better, it means you're memorable. So this raises an interesting question. In 2026, is it better to be different than it is to be actually a better product or service? I think it probably is. Because if you're better, but still invisible, no one's ever going to know about it. So let's see how you can take the brand sliders and use these for yourself. Number 1, map out your current position. Take each of the 6 categories and figure out exactly where you sit on all of them. And be honest. Most brands will find that they are conventional in 5 to 6 of these categories. Map out your competitors. So choose 2 or 3 of your competitors and do this exercise for them. Map out where they sit. Where are they conventional? Where are they disruptive? And this will start to highlight the gaps you can potentially come in and fill. Now it's time to choose your battles. Which of the 6 categories are you going to slide over to disruptive? Which categories will your customers care the most about? Which categories are your competitors the weakest in? And which categories can you realistically change? And then you start moving your sliders. But remember, these little sliders are only designed to be in 2 positions, either all the way to the left over conventional or all the way over to the right in disruptive. So if you're going to move your tone of voice all the way over to the right-hand side, go all in, commit. This exercise isn't just for people who have their own businesses. It's for creatives and marketers who are working with clients who aren't entirely sure how they can change up what they're doing. This is a really great exercise you can go through with them. This is for everyone to use. But the key here is commitment. You're going to go all in with everything you move over to the right. And don't just dip a toe in. Get your face and your genitals right in there and get soaking wet. Slightly different won't work anymore. You need to be noticeably, memorably different. I've created the brand sliders as a completely free tool for you to use. The link is down below. So go ahead, give it a go, and let me know how you get on. Now that you know how to communicate your client's entire branding structure to them, I want you to watch this video next. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to deal with their feedback. Enjoy.